Okay, get started. Why is this? Well, good morning. Thank you very much for 9 months. It's much appreciated. Just fly by. Okay. There you go. Okay, so a bit of a change of pace this morning, mainly due to trying to test out the application and finding problems. So last week I was working on trying to get Liquid Sky up and running on my local machine to validate some of the cases and make sure that I was that changes was functioning correctly. What I learned was that the changes wasn't functioning correctly, and it actually turns out that MongoDB driver, I'd updated the MongoDB driver, and there was actually a breaking change in there. Now the problem is because of the way that the system works, there's a lot of async await stuff. There's a lot of tasks being started for processing of messages, etc. Those just fail silently, right? So it does highlight the fact that what I need to do is make a pass focusing on how do I alert myself to things going wrong in those services. What do I want to know? How do I want to know that? So there will be a retrospective a retrospective on why I missed it, but you know, when it comes down to it, I know that it's because it's being swallowed because they're tasks. So the best thing I can do there is figure out a good logging strategy and pull that in. So it leaves me with a broken MongoDB because my MongoDB has the data stored in the original format, but now the new driver can't read from it. What I need to do is migrate the data. So I kind of gave that a quick go and I exported them as CSVs and whatnot, and I deleted the things, and I'd written this stuff to pull in the CSV and do the migration, etc. I was like, oh yeah, this is working fine. Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. But what I soon realized was that I need to take the source data, which is the data stored in the actual databases as they are, and rebuild this data, and that I'm probably better starting this effort now and moving towards my longer term goal. So I do need tooling to say, hey, take this data from these data sources and construct it into this new data source, right? It is an ETL pipeline. I am going to extract. The transform part isn't going to be as drastic right now, as most of it is basically going to be pull from here, insert into there, pull from here, insert into there. So it's more the extract and load component. But the potential for transform in the future, obviously, if I have calculations that get done before I insert data, that's going to be the transform piece. Or maybe I need to combine fields or extract data from certain fields, etc. Those are where a transform is going to come in. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to build a little CLI tool, and I'm kind of undecided as to the full design of this piece. What I had started doing is creating a few repositories. Basically, reading from and writing to is not the hard part, right? So write all, read all, fetch all, write all, I'm going to pull from tables. I'm going to, I don't need entity framework. I can just use Dapper. You know, there's several of these things here. I think that was. I don't remember how far I got with this tool last time I touched it. But you know, the problem comes when I have a data connection. I need to say, hey, I need to go from here to here. And what I was trying to do is generalize. Um, yeah, conversion runner. Yeah, this is not. It's not a conversion. So here I was like, okay, well, I'll build these action files, and there'll be steps to the actions, and there's a source and a destination, and I'll pull from these fields and push those fields. But it doesn't really. That doesn't necessarily um, do what I want, because the source and destination are they're going to be consistent, right? I'm going to need a data source file separate to that. So, where was it? VS Code. Where are we? File. Open recent. Here we go. Yeah, so I thought something more along the lines of this was necessary. So basically, configure data sources, and then in the configuration files, I can just say, oh, I want to pull from planning, I want to pull from changes, I want to insert into changes, I want to pull from pipelines, I want to insert into pipelines, or I'll pull from changes, insert into pipelines, etc. And then the data sources file would be consistent, and I can just use these names to describe the things. Now, different SQL servers, different. So SQL Server is not a connection, right? The planning DB is the connection. So I'm going to end up with multiple versions of the same thing. Um, right. So I'd need tasks, and this would be ls tasks, right? Um, but then I can define the data connections and just use these names to communicate that I want to use things. That way, no, that was CSV mapping. That way, something. Oh, let's take this, close that down. Wow, data sources JSON. I'm not getting into YAML now. Integration events from planning items. Yeah, so I don't want to do something like this. And I am very much driving my design off of how I feel about this, by the way. I want it to be kind of logical. So I'm willing to just keep playing around with this until I refine it. Now, this is a tool I need to develop. This is not a tool that I'm just developing for this one specific case. So it's not a single purpose tool. It is a tool I will continue to need as I build new components out, as I build new systems out. I don't want to have to wipe the system from scratch every single time and rebuild it so that all the events play out. So I do need to be able to seed data into new systems. This is actually a system that would be required on production as well, because you would need the CLI there to be able to say, okay, pull all this data, use this script, pull all this data from these data sources and import them into this, right? Morning, Dota. So it is something that is going to be a constantly refined tool. And I can't see any other way of doing that, right? I've considered this a long time, and basically I don't see any other way when you're using a distributed system like this of you can't use a distributed system to seed the system. You have to populate the components and use the distributed system to to keep in line. If data falls out of sync, right? I should be able to pull from the source of truth and insert into um, into the target databases and have them be trustworthy again, right? So that's one of the benefits. Things like changes, etc. Its core tables probably need backing up, but everything else doesn't need that. I can't wait until winter solstice gets here. I think darkness is depressing me. Yeah, it gets you sometimes. Stay positive. You could use observability tools to look at the system. Hi, Zones. How you doing? Observability tools such as okay. But the problem is that those are made for looking at the state. So um, what I'm doing here is okay. Well, let's bring up the diagram. So let's say I need to I'm working on tasks for the first time, and I need data from other data sources, or rather, let's say I bring up um, a reporting. Let's say, yeah, that's probably a better example. Let's say I bring up a reporting piece here. I need it to be populated with data from all these other data sources, right? But but the first time I bring it up, all the data in the existing system has been going for months or years even. I don't have that data available to me. So most of the data in these systems gets updated using Kafka, um, but I can't use Kafka to export the system from everything because that would just be noisy, messy, and expensive. So what I do is I create a tool, and it could also tell a lie, right? Because it could publish an event, and one of these could pick it up and say, "Oh, well, it's been updated," therefore tell someone it's been updated or whatever. So what I do is I create a tool to say, "Hey, I need to pull planning items from here and insert into this database. I need to pull notifications and insert attachments, tasks, and write that tool to populate this so that when this does go into production, I can start it and then let it catch up with, because if it's up to date, and let's say some other messages have gone by since it went, it can then use Kafka to catch up. It doesn't have to be 100% live. It can be running in the background, um, uh, pulling its data, and then the moment I turn it on, Kafka messages come in. But again, because of the way you're going to work with those events, that is going to oh, I don't need this data. I can throw it out. So we're going to check on dates and stuff to validate. Do I actually care? Do I have a newer version of this object? So it can pick itself up off Kafka, but you can't seed, like, if this has been in production for years, you can't seed a couple of years worth of data into there using Kafka. So that's about. So App Insights, Grafana, etc., aren't going to do that piece. As far as I'm aware. But if you've done something similar to this, I'd be happy to hear the experience. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define data sources. I'm going to change this code up a little bit. If you build it up from Kafka, the messages could have changed. That's the issue with doing that. Well, if you build it up from Kafka, it's how do you get them into Kafka? Because if I have a 2 week retention policy on Kafka, right? If all the system is less than 2 weeks old and all the messages are sat there, then that's great. But if I go to 15 days, messages from day one in Kafka are gone now because they've been dropped. So you can't use Kafka to rebuild unless you have a massive retention policy. And you can't. It's wrong to make tools to make all the individual services republish to Kafka because you're just going to drown the system with messaging. If you've got gigs and gigs of data across all these things, and yes, I'm exaggerating that for the purpose of considering this as a real system. I'm just going to drown Kafka in noise. I've set up reporting via things like SQLServer reporting to do things what you described seems to be a custom ETL system. I assume there are tools that depending on the DB. It, there are, to be clear, there are ETL tools. I'm just going to build my own. Some of the tools are pay tools, which I cannot afford to just use on this system because they'd be used for that. Reporting again, I'm considering reporting as a separate database there. No, no. I'm not reporting against the source databases, so I'm not building it like that. This is database for purpose, not so reporting is a separate concern. Field of data engineering. Yeah, if you're interested in this, one line has just done a particularly interesting implementation where he needed to pull in data and transform it and translate it based upon some rules that are defined by the users into a new data source. Like I said when I started, some of what I'm doing here won't be the transform component for a while. It'll be more extract and load. Migration scripts aren't, again, if I bring up a new system, I want to be able to add something that says, okay, pull from this data source, pull from this data source, pull from this data source, insert into these tables in this new thing, and go. And just have that flexibility. And you could use that same tool to build up custom data sets for analytics, for doing all sorts of other stuff that aren't part of the main pipeline. So I did look at a few tools. I did look at a few libraries for doing this before I started this process. Like I said, some of them I don't like. Some of them, the implementation doesn't feel very good. And some of them it costs money and you're not spending money where possible on this project right now. Sometimes it's good to do this just to understand the challenges, right? Not necessarily worry about has the wheel been made before. But I'm going to change how I do this, please. So I don't want to do this in the same way. So let's figure out what I actually need here. It's actions. It's not actions. It is. So right now I have nice, easy version of this, right? Because what I need to do is create 3 collections, users, planning items, and projects in pipelines. So I did validate that it was because the GUID implementation in MongoDB changed in 8.1.0. I upgraded the libraries in an attempt to stay up to date, and they changed how GUIDs work. So the data I had stored was actually bad. So lesson for me there, don't upgrade major components of my system without validating breaking changes. I don't think it was. I think it was an 8.0 to 8.1 release as well, and it broke it, which is kind of weird. Yeah. It just changed the default behavior for GUIDs, and because I'd stored them as bin data, I wasn't. Again, what I needed to do was have something to migrate the data to a different form. Now, again, it's why this system is being developed the way it is so that I don't actually have I don't care about that piece, right? I can rebuild that piece. Now, in this instance, it actually does it does pose a problem, right? So no, I suppose it doesn't in this one. Changes is an interesting challenge because changes is like, hey, what do I know? What do I look like? So changes is going to have to have its own backup. That's going to have to be important. I can't rebuild changes. Is it target audience for this app? For this app, um, primarily product management teams. What level of volume are you selling to? If this makes it to production, this would be sold to large teams. It's not a small team thing, that's for certain. Um, the actual application is a Jira alternative for large teams, not small teams, because it really doesn't benefit small teams. Yeah. So again, the goal is that's not going to work because that's not up and running. But that's interesting because that machine's off right now. Yeah, the goal is very much to build an application that helps that flow of information through, um, and stops us as developers being focused on the where things are, what status things are in, have more visibility, um, increase the ability for product management teams to understand the progress on things in the way they need, while allowing developers to express the system in the way they need, and communication doesn't have to be a challenge. Small startups don't really have the money want to use something like this. But it's not so much the money; it's more just the scale of the real benefits shine through. Like I'm selling it, but the real benefits shine through when you are using the process rather than the pieces. So if you want to use the Scrum board stuff, then that would be possible still. You could actually use Liquid Skies tasks and boards just fine without all the rest. But the planning is the focus, right? Because the ability to notify on changes, the ability to the ability for visualizing where specific components of the system are based upon what planning expect, those pieces are the real value add that Jira just doesn't do. Being able to dream up ideas and keep them away from development backlogs so it doesn't look like work to be done all the time is a key driving motivation here. Just have to do enterprise sales, different sales cycle, but they need systems too. Well, not. I mean, the pipeline into product comes from multiple places, right? The pipeline comes from upper management. It comes from sales. It comes from, um, experience in the product, using it with the talking to users, feedback, etc. Product is a kind of clearinghouse for ideas. Um, Not trying to undervalue or devalue what product is doing there, but product really should be refining ideas, assessing the value to the organization. Um, yeah. Well, that's the thing I'm trying to avoid as well. I'm trying to avoid building this tool and then saying, "Hey, it's ready," and then let sales drive the requirements, because I feel that oftentimes ends up with development happening at a rapid pace that you lose control of the software. Because you're driving it based upon what people will want, based upon what people are willing to pay for, and not on what's good for the product. Because people can dream up ideas, but they can't see the bigger picture. Yeah, it's how a lot of legacy code exists, right? Because people built software to quickly get up to speed. Important guy. Good morning or good day. Hope you're well. So, this is this is a dream, right? Um, the goal would be to build this out, and maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't, but the idea would be to build it and see, um, and share the journey, right? That's linear. I think I've looked at linear before in my mobbing. Yeah, linear. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's an original tool, um, certain, um, but again, build and plan products is an interesting order of those words. Planning and building products. Sorry, where did I see build and plan? I swear I saw build and plan then. That's a stunning usability thing. But either way, we know it's an issue. Um, what I'm trying to do with this is separate out that those worlds, and linear still focuses on the, hey, here's some requirements, here's the story sort of pattern. If memory serves from when I was going through it on mobbing, and I really do think they are separate worlds as far as the data is concerned and the visualization. Um, but we'll get there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out a script, a new script. Migrate um, for pipelines. See that? What do I actually need? well, I need um, so this is why I came up with this is why I used actions as a thing, right? Because it is a set of things that I want to do. Get off my screen. Stop. Was it Control Shift O? Is that how I turn that on? Control Alt Shift. Control Alt Shift O. There you go. Disable completions. My recommendation is to at least consult with an enterprise sales guy when you get your prototype set up on the side of the business as you build. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if there's a moment that looks like Liquid Sky is viable as a product, that once I've gone through all the effort of getting people to verify, to test, to see how they feel about it, get the feedback. Again, there's certain features in this application stack that I want to be there. I could have got something working a long time ago, right? But I'm taking my time building it as I want to build it, demonstrating the way I build the software on the stream, and then if it comes to the point where it actually becomes realistic as a product, then the next steps are to make sure that it's set up for that success. But got to do a lot more work to get there first, and 2 hours a day of development time is limited as is. So realistically, what I want to do here is I want to say, okay, well, I need users table. I need projects. I need planning items. This comes from so the fun thing here is based upon the data source, the way I query it, the way I pull the data is going to be very different. So each data source is going to need not necessarily. So the way I did it here, I said, okay, well, you can take a data source, fetch all, and write all, which isn't entirely wrong. A target is a table and fields, though. And then MongoDB, I suppose it does have that. Target's a table and fields, but that's wrong. No, whether it's a collection or table, I suppose it is valid. Calling it target is probably not the right thing to do, though. But it does work for that. For this, not so much. Let's try. So they're types of thing. They're types of connection. So that's SQL Server, MongoDB, etc. That's what's going to get that. Then So this would be, source would be, so from our data sources, that would be planning. Hey, Tricky Lady. How you doing? Source would be planning. No, that would be tenant management. I am making a tool to take data from one database to another. So this is going to be similar to this kind of data. Um, um, the bots and stuff. The bots don't work. No, there's no project command. Well, no. So this is part of my main project. Um, it's to try and move data from some of these databases that I have. So I have the concept of um, it's one line controlled. Um, yeah, that's the tool that's the overall platform thing I'm building. But the the idea here is that each one of these databases contains data it owns. And what I need to do is populate supporting databases so that they have a copy of that data, so they don't have to query the main database. The reason you do that is to try and isolate who's touching your data. You don't want different services to use the same database because it will be slower. So what I need to be able to do is populate out this data, the same data, into other databases in different formats, in different tools, um, to allow my system to move quicker. Unfortunately, it requires building or gathering tools um, to do that sort of stuff. So I'm going to say pull from tenant management. Um, Collection is users. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to write this out. It doesn't do anything yet. I'm going to build what it does in a minute. But I'm trying to make sure that it feels natural. Um, if you've used a CLI, if you've used a tool before and it just feels awkward and you have to keep jumping back to the documentation because it doesn't feel logical, or you feel that it's like fighting you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to define here. I'm trying to make sure that um, this feels easy to understand. So I'm writing out the way I want to do it before I actually implement the code. What would it be used for? This would be used when I'm building out my system to be able to say, oh, I need another database. I need to create another one of these, right? But I need it to pull data from all these different things. That's what I'm doing. I'm saying, hey, pull this from all these different data sources. So collection users, name tenant management. So by getting the name, I know the data source type, so I know what I'm doing. Um, do I do that? Or do I do? Let's go target right this second. Name pipelines. I think I called it. Yeah. Collection users. Case sensitivity we're gonna have to worry about later. See if that happens. Is that going to matter? Like I know the fields I want, right? I know what I'm going to ask here. So do I need to stress over like what I'm thinking about is do I need to do something like this where I do from so this is going to go from tenant management users, right? Which right now this is a one-to-one, so it's not really going to stretch it and it'll work. But I need from tenant management identifier to identifier, right? Do I want to do it that way? Because I'm gonna have to build this query up. Unless I just like right now I think it's just select star. Oh no, select so here I'm building the target. So I'm trying to be at least efficient on the data. There's no filtering, which is another challenge as well. But do I do it that way? So if there was a transform, right? Um, then that would be defined here. Whereas if I just define the fields here, then transforms are separate. Do I just do a name by name match? Is there a benefit in doing it this way? This shouldn't matter very much anyway. The database will be fine because the model in the changes is just identify name and email. If I do the mapping, then I've got to build up. If I want to do something like this, then I've got to build up that target as it is now from an array of values that I can select many from. That's fine. Source, target, destination. Let's try and write it that way. That feels okay because that defines the mapping. If I have more complicated needs there, I can worry about that later because that would be if I wanted to combine fields or something, I'd have to do an array or something crazy here. So the type of this would change. So it will be very different. What I'm trying to do is see if I can abstract the data type, the data source, and destination. So the data type, the data sources themselves would know how to translate all the requirements, right? I shouldn't have to worry about whether it's SQL Server to Mongo or Mongo to SQL Server or whatever. I should just be able to define them, and I could use the same design if I get this working. I can use the same design to migrate the data from SQL Server um, to Postgre as I'm testing Postgre. Let's try and build that out and see what happens. Okay, so let's remove them. Remove them. So transform definition. I'm not transforming steps, data conversion, data connection. No, MongoDB is a document database. It's a different style of database. It uses, think of it just it literally storing documents instead of rows and columns like SQL Server does. So MongoDB, you get a collection, and this will lay it out like a table. But this isn't. This is stored more of a document, so it has different uh, um, different pros and cons. You can change the the data stored in these. You can be a little bit more flexible with the data. Um, but different use cases. So in this case, the thing is, I don't necessarily know the shape of everything I'm going to store. So as I'm storing data, um, uh, this allows me to be a bit more flexible with that data. Whereas if I have a SQL Server, I have to kind of define a schema and set it up and say, oh, it's going to be this number of columns, etc. So MongoDB allows me to be a little bit more flexible with that. And there's other things like RavenDB, uh, Couchbase, CouchDB. They like to put the word DB on the end so that you remember that it is a database. Um, whereas the SQL ones don't tend to have that. Um, Morning Mojo, by the way. Sandra. Yeah, there's all sorts of different alternatives. But again, the idea here is with the tool, once the tool works effectively, then if I decide that I want to move data from one to another and test something else, I can just run the tool and migrate the data across. Um, and it will work. Okay. So what I need here is something to represent that model. Let's turn you back on, because this is where this becomes public class. No, I don't remember asking for a user change resolver, but okay, we can start there. Migration. Really? Not sure I want to define it, but okay. Public class action. There you go, that was better. So I called this a target. No, it's kind of a combination of both there. Let's not go all the way that one. Class. Well, source and destination, they're the exact same idea. Let's go with so let's do this public class data source. Like string type. Name connection string. Filter media. Good morning. How you doing? So you all have a great day. Thank you very much, Filter. You too. So I don't know what to do that. So this is just a public class data sources. Data sources. Why does that feel like sources? That doesn't feel right. It doesn't read right. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't. It's not like a nice logical. Database. Yeah. All good. Because they don't need the database because they're already connected to the database, but these do need the database to connect. So there is a difference between the connection types. What I'm thinking is repository and that are not the same thing. So your voice is gone. Let's find it. My wife also got sick this weekend, so she's upstairs, coughing and spluttering. Oh dear. So I'm not ignoring you. Just yeah, you too. Yeah, I will not be amused if I get sick. So what I'm thinking about here is, so what I did with this version, I was messing around with CSV to start with, right? So what I did is I created this importer, but I also created the import factory. gets the CSV data importer. The data importer understands how to fetch the data. And I had the CSV data mapping was pulled from, convert values. So no, not that one. Fetch mapped properties from JSON element. Yeah, so the configuration for the thing was pulled from based upon what it was actually set up to do. Whereas with this, what I'm thinking is the data source. This kind of aligns to this a little bit in that it knows what it's going to use. So I'm thinking that these might be one and the same. I'll get sick often. Maybe once a year. If that, when I do get sick, I feel like I'm hit with. Right. No sleep. Yes, the same. I'm I don't get sick very often. Uh, just tired. Just tired. What do I want to do here? I'm trying to think about how I want to design this. Because essentially what's going to happen is each thing is going to understand its configuration. So if I use a factory, basically I just need to feed the rest of the data into an instance of the thing that I build based off this, right? So repository, and again, I need read all and write all. Essentially, that's good enough. I don't need anything clever right this second. This is going to be a straight select insert, essentially. Yeah, see, that's the problem. It's a data connection. Okay, I did kind of have the idea, the same idea, because it adds database. If you look there's a slight similarity. Data connection. These are data connections. This is a name, a type, and a SQL. So data bullet string. The type is going to get lost. Name type. So there's a MongoDB version that adds database on top of data connection. So data sources is a list of connections. So let's focus on that piece first. Let's get that up and running. So properties, copy always, properties, copy always. Just need to make sure that they get put out to the output directory, otherwise that's gonna trip me up. So we need public class connections, public data connection. See, the problem is that's not going to have the specifics, is it? That's going to lose. No, I can't do it that way. Because, yeah, that's great that that extends that, but this does not know about this at the time it deserializes. So if I deserialize everything as data connection, then I'm still going to have to read back into this file to get that. So public class data connections. This is not a deserialized version of this. This is a string data sources, data connections file path. Actually, let's make that a construct. And this is going to be what I'm going to do is have a data connection, get connection, and that's going to, see, again, I don't know what type it is here, so I'm not going to know a MongoDB connection. I mean, I have to do it within here, which seems hacky. The alternative is I have configuration as a dynamic, as a what I do is have configuration as a dynamic object, essentially. So we drop this and we put public string configuration as that. We'll come back around all those later. Yeah, that's going to break all that because that's a mess now. Factories, repository factory. Yeah, that's what I figured. Right. We'll come back around to this afterwards. Again, because the factory is going to provide you the instance, which is fine. I just need the data connection to be a little bit defined differently. Doing it this way, now there is only this data connection. Now here, I don't need to stress that because I should be able to do var connections equals JSON serializer dot deserialize public class data connections public enumerable data connection connections. Did I rename that to connections yet? No, sources. Let's start as we mean to go on. By doing this way, I'm actually allowing myself to validate the API that I'm building as I go. I'm testing it by making sure that if I read back over something and I'm having to remember what I called something, that's probably not an indicator that I'm naming things the right way. I'm just kind of evolving it rather than setting a plan out and just trying to bundle through the plan at all costs. So this is going to be date connections, and this is going to be file.read all text, data sources .json. Must proceed in namespace and type declarations. Yeah, you can get on there. Connection. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so connections looks like this. And it didn't work. Oh, you know why? Because new JSON serializer options, naming policy equals camel case. Let's try that again. The JSON value cannot be converted to a system string. I think that's still going to fail. I think that's going to be. Yeah. Oh, it does store it as a JSON element. Nice. Okay. So not have to specify as JSON element, but it is. Okay. Okay, that's okay then. So with that, now we have the name. We can in here. That'll still work for SQL Server. For MongoDB repository, we're going to have to yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a data connection. That's going to be a data connection. The problem is that what I want to do here is understand that extra configuration piece. I want to pull that in. So that's why specifics there. The only way of doing that though would be to do public class MongoDB connection is a data connection, which then understands how to do public string database as being configuration dot. This would be, let's do this. Let's just put this here for right a second. Problem is, it's like, it's not that because it's an object, but it's actually a JSON element. So realistically, it's not. I'm making a mess here somewhere, but like class MongoDB configuration. Yeah. Make much sense that. That's not what I want to do, right? Um, what I was thinking there is I can translate that here because I know it's MongoDB. Like, where do I want to get JSON object? Yeah, again, this was built off the idea of object provider. Yeah, see, I was thinking about the data connection as being a serialized object anyway. So this isn't right as is. Um, so idea so far, build this from a data source perspective. I want to be able to get a connection on demand based upon the name, and that will give me the rest. So yeah, this works to pull the data source, but that doesn't give me much more. Data connections. So let's create. Click string database. What I'm doing is I'm making the mistake of thinking too far ahead by by trying to be really generic about the behavior. I don't know what my use case is going to look like a week from now, 2 weeks from now. I know what my use case is now. So I'm trying to kind of battle that internally in terms of trying to be too generic right now is going to overcomplicate this massively. But having no flexibility is going to mean that I'm going to have to pull a lot apart. And I do have a case of there is a difference between these two things, right? There's no need in putting configuration objects on here and specifying database. There's just no value in that. It's specified in the connection string in SQL Server. So there's no great benefit in doing that this way. Here, I do know I need to connect to the database separately. I have a different behavior. So I'm trying to battle that piece and stop myself from going too deep on the over engineering, but at the same time, at least figure out the use case I have. So what I was doing originally was basically storing the JSON values and then passing them in as I needed them, right, to get me a connection to the thing. If I treat it similarly, I want to narrow down the number of places where I'm specializing. That's kind of what I'm aiming for here. I create. That's fine. I wasn't married to any of this design because it just felt clunky. Hey, Patrick. Going well. How about yourself? First day today, right? Nice. Congratulations. So we load the data sources up. That's fine. But then this additional data is the challenge. Several mixed emotions, but it'll be fine. It's never easy starting something new. It's very. It's, I can share with you the starting something new in a completely different place. I have done that a few times, away from everything else. It's yeah, yeah, that I can imagine is not helping very much, but 3 yourself into your first day, learn a lot. New place, new job thing a couple of times now. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, when I moved away when I was 19, moved only 35 miles away from home, but considering I didn't drive or anything, it was over a 2-hour train ride to get back to see any of my family and friends. Um, and then I moved 200 miles away, started again. Then 3,500 miles moving across the ocean. Yeah, well, like I said, focus on the job, focus on the things you can control, and I'm a big fan of doing that. By the way, if I get myself down, um, I focus on the things I can do, and that's my laser focus, so that I don't get myself into a negative place as much as possible. Um, so just sharing that. How does that actually work? Target a table, create a string. I don't think that does work. Yeah, every step one forward. In terms of experience with the world, you know, just does it echo when you sneeze? Okay, yeah, I would. Definitely a plus, I suppose. Okay, hell am I gonna do this? How the heck do I want to do this? I'm stuck on the design. I don't want to overthink it, but in the same, okay. Let's do. Oh wow, yeah. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's do data connections, string source. No, no. Let's do data provider. I haven't lived in a house like that for a long time. I used to live I used to rent a room in a house that is a Victorian terraced house. So the ceilings were 14 foot high, wooden floors. Very weird shaped house because it was on the end, so the kitchen was kind of triangular. Europe, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in. That was an interesting place to live, and I lived in the attic though, so I didn't get much echo up there. But string source file. Let's do this. We're gonna do private IEnumerable data connections. I'm gonna do that. Oh man, hands are cold. Data connection. They're gonna be data connection. D3 has data connection. Oh yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. It's going to work. You're not gonna like that. Possible null reference. Whatever. It's fine. Doesn't need to be perfect right this second. Source file path. How does that work when I need to do something? Oh, it's going to move it all in there, isn't it? Ugh. Then, no. I prefer a regular constructor to that one, rather than having it all in line in the variable definition. So we're going to do var equals that. That's going to be data sources.json, debugger, break. So again, just trying to tighten up this API, make sure it's doing what I want it to do. Okay, so we have data connections. So what I'm going to do is with the data provider, I'm going to make the data provider understand the difference between a MongoDB and a SQL server, and it's going to feed that back. Or my other option is have this inject the data provider, right, and give it a name. I kind of like the data provider being it's called data provider after all. Move to another file. Let's move that there for right this second. So he really wants me to do that, doesn't it? I just don't like that style. This we will do private const serializer options. do it that way. So this will be T connection get. It's not get. It's not T data connection. So I can do it that way, but then and then specify the difference between Mongo and SQL Server. But that doesn't really give me what I want because it just it doesn't do the casting for me. So that's not going to work. So because the reason I'm like taking my time with this and messing around a bit more is because I'm focused on making this an actual usable tool. If I was just trying to get this together to do it quickly, I would be throwing more code in here just to do the job. But I'm not sure what I want, so I can't go out and plot this out. I want to letting I'm kind of exploring the tool and the design as I go, based upon how it feels. John Horn, how you doing? The provider. I could essentially make this the factory. I feel like that's wrong. But if this understands the difference between how it's going to get the configuration stuff, that's okay. Because if I have public class, I've only got the specialization for the one thing. That's the annoying thing. Source tenant management. The collection doesn't really bear a challenge right now. Super busy last week. Split the teams. Wants to help give the overseas team more autonomy. More autonomy. We'll get this right. So what I'm trying to do is build it so that I can say, okay, here's a tool, run this script, basically feed it this with a known list of these all the time, right? So from a directory where I have all these configured, I can say, okay, run this script, and it will do all the migration for me. I can say run it on a directory of scripts or whatever, just to get the migration. So I can actually build up just something like this and have it run the data in. To be real, they were dreaming the team with all the micromanagement they needed, and this way we can bucket work into separate worlds. Yeah, yeah. I've seen both sides of the lack of autonomy, more autonomy, the management needed. Yeah, it's not an easy balance for certain. Okay. So yeah, the goal here is basically I can just do ls CLI right this second. We'll go with that. And we can just do s migrate for pipelines.json d equals data sources JSON, right? And feed it that and just run that as a script. And that way, building future systems should be just making sure the data source is in there and then configuring this. And that would be the one I want to do. Again, there is a need for this because, this isn't the final system. There's going to be, support ticketing might need pieces of users, etc. If I wipe one of these things out, I'm going to need to have to rebuild the actual data store from source. View as well is a big one. Creating the view one will be massive because view doesn't have any of its own data. That's the purpose of view, with one exception right now, which is getting pulled to communications. But anyway, for the most part, view should be completely recreatable off everything else. So having a script to rebuild view will be massive because then I can just redefine how view is stored or whatever and just rebuild the entire thing off of existing data. Indeed, we need more seniors in that team. The lack of experience means they need to wait hours for question turnaround, and that can only go on so long, and the quality was starting to suffer. Yeah, the time difference definitely makes a challenge of working with getting software to develop effectively. I don't know. I'm trying to choose my words here a little bit more. I'm not sure there's an effective way of doing it that doesn't mean compromise somewhere. It requires either a lot of upfront planning or good team layout and process. Yeah. But even planning up front, that's a challenge because you don't get you might not get a lot of questions or the right questions, or the language sometimes poses a challenge from understanding, and there's a lot of yes, which just means you don't understand until too late whether the requirement's been missed. I'm laughing because I've done the exact same thing. Yeah. Okay. Let's see how much more of this I can get done. Oh, what do I want to do here? Like, I'm gonna leave that in. That's my motivation. That's what I'm aiming for. Data provider makes sense. And again, this would be abstracted anyway. This isn't part of it. Ultimately, this isn't even part of it. A tool that I should be building much on top of later, but it should be easy to change. It is a piece of production grade software, and it should be treated that way. Unit testing, being that I don't know what the design looks like or what I really want to do, unit testing would be hard here. Once I have a design in mind, maybe I can backtrack a little bit and write some unit tests to kind of firm up some of the ideas. Yeah. Let's see where we're going with this. So what I'm trying to avoid is hard coding stuff, and I don't think I can avoid hard coding. Unless I do data provider. Why are you? Oh, because you got semicolon missing there. If I do repository factory, leave that there for right this second. Repository factory, static repository get, and then I do. Hold on. If I do string name, and then we inject let's stop that being that. Let's inject data provider. Then let's just do if provider. Let's get data provider public. That's the default. Is it connection? Is that what I call it? Data connections yet? We then go in here and do if provider. So var connection equals provider dot get connection. Name if connection is null. Oh, no connection found. That tackles that. Then we do something similar to this, where if connection dot type, let's do, yes, I realize I'm dealing with the case. MongoDB. SQLServer repository, and then that is going to be connection, right? And then MongoDB is going to take connection, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get MongoDB repository dot parameters. We're going to do JSON serializer dot deserialize. And that's going to be connection dot configuration. And that's going to be, yes, I know this is dealing with JSON. JSON element. Oh, interesting. It wants me to do it that way. And in here, remove that. That's going to be a data connection. And then that's going to be public class, public CO class parameters, database, and that's going to take parameters, and that's going to take that and that and that. And now in here, we're going to explode if that doesn't work properly. But then we can delete. So now we've got a repository factory, data provider. So if we do var factory equals new repository factory, data provider. Then we do var repository equals factory.get management. That shouldn't explode. Oh, that'll explode because of that. That's fine. You can just go away. What we got there? So we got repository, SQL Server repository. Okay, let's test something. Var records equals repository dot fetch all. Now we need a new target. Okay, that's fine. New target. Table is users. Fields equals email identifier. Records. Is that actually from X in select new ID equals X identifier? No, because it won't know it. It can't possibly because that's the problem I was facing last time. It was like it's fetch all returns, and that's why that's gonna break now. Okay. Records 19. Okay. So it has them, but they're expandable objects. They're all dynamic objects. That's where I got stuck last time in terms of the problem is if you type them, the insert is, yeah. var destination equals factory.get pipelines. When I get to that debugger, I'm going to be amazed. Oh, that didn't work. Hold on. No, it didn't work. Let's test something else. Fail. If fail exists now, then something worked. There you go. That did work. So it does in principle work. The point of dropping users there was I decided to pivot to this because I'd exported the data. I'd got the GUIDs wrong. It was a mess. But I don't want to. What I didn't want to do is go and change the code to adapt to the idea. Oh well, the identifier may have changed. It just triggered I now have a legitimate need for this tool to exist. So I will develop this to the point where this piece works, and then refine it as I go. As we build newer features of the system, yeah. All right. Okay, so we do have a read and write essentially, right? So we can fetch all, we can fetch the fields we want, and now we can write all. So that does work. So our the data provider and repository factory pieces work there well enough. So essentially what I need to do is for DI and stuff, I need to set up those things. Actually, no, I wouldn't even need DI here. Because essentially all I'm doing now is I need to translate this all. Taking the 2 hour stream of faffing around trying to figure this out, and now it's like, oh well, all it is this. Okay, so this is what is this? Source and destination are what are they? They are, how would I define them? A name and a collection pair. What is that? It's not a source, it's not a destination, it's not a connection, it's not, because it is going to get this name here and this name here, right? Thing public string collection. So that's the thing there, and that's the thing there. And then the mapping is public class mapping. Okay, so then let's do this. Let's do var migration equals JSON serializer dot serialize migration file dot read all text migrate for pipelines dot JSON. All this so I can resume the Kafka queue and have the events go through that I was testing last week. So then we have var source equals factory.get. Oh yeah, for each. Take it away, GitHub. Migration dot actions. Oh yeah, public enumerable actions. Yeah, I forget you could do that. Oh, it is implicit now, isn't it? So that will fetch from the target source collection, destination name, source name, destination right. Now the fields var from fields equals source dot action dot source action dot mapping dot select s goes to s dot from var two fields. Again, this is not transform. This is extract and load. So that should actually, if this works, yield the same result. Oh, you know why? Because of that pesky JSON serializer settings. There you go. So now we should have users, email. So notice identifier is set there now properly. Although that being said, I think that's still set to C# legacy, and that's a problem. Yeah, still not sure that's the correct thing to do. Hold on, let's wipe that out again, because I've got a horrible feeling that this might actually have been built when, yeah, 3.1, but the entity framework. But I'm not using entity framework. That's interesting. This should work. This should change the behavior. But my concern there is that because I'm not actually using the same tooling to create the data, because I don't want to there. that could create its own set of problems. But anyway, let's see what that does now. So now when we run that, oh. So I'm using just the raw MongoDB stuff. I'm not using, looks like they've created an actual extension rather than making it part of the core library. Ooh. Not serialize a GUI when GUID specification is. That's interesting. That is interesting. I mean, that points out the problem, right? They've changed how serialization works of GUIDs. So the way I validated this was, by the way, is I actually looked at this table, this failing table, and you'll notice that the data type for the GUID is actually Pindaya. I thought it was UUID, but either way, this one displays properly, but that other one you just saw doesn't, because it's inserted using the wrong type. There's several different versions of GUID serialization in Mongo, and they changed it as of that 3.1 driver. So what I was doing there was inserting the old style, and that would have then broken because I've updated the library in .NET. So I need to make sure that whatever these libraries are, they align with whatever libraries I'm using in the main application all the time. Otherwise, I could end up falling out of sync again if someone introduces breaking changes. And I think it was actually the Mongo driver that changed, not the entity framework piece. So the Mongo driver that's back in the latest version in entity framework is 3.1, whereas it was 2.2.8 previously or whatever. Okay, so anyway, we are going to finish up here. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to continue working on this this evening a little bit if I can. Try and get a little bit over this hump, figure this out. Napalm, good morning. Hope you're all well. Hope you had a great weekend. But let's go raid Mr. Box. We'll start the week with Mr. Box. Hopefully he's getting closer and closer to releasing his game, which I highly recommend checking out if you haven't seen it before. So, yeah, thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow and do some more of this. Take care all. Oh, it's Monday as well. Don't forget. It is Monday. Line of Code streams Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and has been working on his work product, which I recommend following along with. Patrick, have a great first day. Thanks for the background name, Smile/stream. You're very welcome, Mr. Anhan. Have a great day. And Patrick, enjoy your first day. Get lots from it. I'll see you all soon. Take care all. Bye.